what kind of things can we do with embeddings? Now, one particular thing that we can use embeddings for is to automatically group text together. And let me show you how that would work. So I'm going to llmfoundry.strive.com, where we have a classify tool. Now, in this tool, we have the ability to paste any piece of text, let's say apple, orange, banana, which are clearly fruits, Jamaica, Facebook, which is a country and a company, and ask it to categorize as fruit, country, company, and use text embedding 3 small as the model. When we do that, it gives us a matrix. And if we said, look, just pick your best choice, show me just the best topic, then it has clearly categorized all of these correctly. And therefore, one of the things that we can do is use these embeddings at practically zero cost to classify. Not just classify, we can also see which are similar to each other. So in this kind of a network or in this kind of a knowledge graph, we could see that some points are closer to each other. So I see Zimbabwe, for instance, there was Nicaragua somewhere close to Zimbabwe. So maybe some of those were closer to each other, and maybe some of these are slightly further away from each other. So maybe we can use that to create clusters or groups of text. And doing that allows us to automatically identify whether there are any topics that are similar between these. Let me show you a solution that uses this. Many of you may have seen this. This is Doc Explore, where we have taken, let's take one of these, credit card complaints. So these are complaints from 4,000 consumers on credit cards from different organizations. Now, from this, we have extracted the top clusters. And it turns out that the majority of the complaints are related to problem with the purchase on the statement, followed by credit monitoring. And then there's others, getting a credit card, payment usage. These are the top categories of complaints, computed purely using embeddings and therefore at less than a few cents of cost. This can also be subdivided. If for each of these, we can get subcategories. So when there's a problem with the purchase on the statement, often it's about the company not resolving the dispute. But sometimes it's because you were charged for something you didn't buy, or you were overcharged. And in that order, that's the frequency of complaints. Similarly, when it's credit monitoring, what are the kinds of complaints? When it's payments and usage for fees or interest, what are the kinds of complaints? And you can also see in which document, which type of complaint is present. So if we take each of the complaints as one little document in a box here, so this is one of the complaints. Here is another small complaint. Now we can look at any one of these categories. Let's say problem with a purchase on the statement, and examine where exactly we had a problem with the purchase. So here there were two kinds of problems. The card was not charged for something when you were charged for something you didn't purchase, and the company is not resolving it. Here's another here's another problem where the company isn't resolving the dispute. Each of these saves you the time to have to read through, and you can automatically pick and choose from the categories. But apart from being able to scan the document right through, what you can also do is determine the sensitivity or pick and choose the most exact categories. So if I said, look, I'm interested only where I'm 100% sure that the topic is what we had identified, then we are increasing the sensitivity. And now only those areas where there clearly is a problem with regard to dispute, or where there clearly is a problem with the statement not showing on purchase, those will be highlighted. So you can see the worst issues or the starkest issues, so to speak. Or you can move it to the other end and say, here is one particular item. I want to know which category it might belong to, if I could even have a liberal interpretation. So you can keep extending it until it finally ends up at maybe one or two categories. And then you say, okay, fine. So maybe you kind of were sent a card that you were never applied for, allowing us to, again, get inferences without necessarily reading it, and then taking it to the next level where we can identify what are the specific topics that each of these complaints are talking about that are and how they are related to each other. So for instance, each of these boxes is one of the complaint areas. So all of these in purple are problems related to the statement. And what we find is that they often occur together in complaints. So when somebody is complaining about this, they also often complain about this. Interestingly, they also are often complaining about billing dispute and services. But complaints related to, for instance, payments and usage, that seems to be a separate category. Complaints related to reporting company using your report improperly or inaccurate information, those seem to be separate and have a separate, and they seem to form a cluster. How can we use this? Now, if there are separate clusters, then you probably want a different team to handle those kinds of problems. Say, okay, now I'm going to set up a team that handles this kind of complaints because that seems to require specialized knowledge. But all of this seem to be related complaints, and I should have the same team handling these kinds of areas. Is an example of one kind of decision that you would be able to make with just embedding data.